Welcome everybody to our work session tonight, and we've got several board members that are having to travel and work things coming up, and I know some of them are at conferences, some of them are on the road delivering stuff. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Nolte.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Members of the board, I want to introduce Deborah Frisbie. She doesn't have to get up or anything, but she's going to help Nathan and I in a moment share some information about a budget resolution. Deborah is a former finance director for a couple school systems in our region, and she's been working with us 1 day a week plus some on-call stuff through the company that you all allowed us to contract with, Hurd, Eisenhower, and Lope. So that's this nice lady behind us, and you'll hear a little bit more about what she and Nathan have been working on and what we want to share with you tonight in just a minute. I do have just one announcement before we do the budget information. And Brooke, do you mind to text the board or email them or something as a reminder, especially since some members are not here? In particular, Mr. Rogers has asked for some time about board members accessing Pierce benefits. And so the good news is Jason has checked on that for us and has checked with Dean Shatley. And if you all want to do that, you certainly can. You'll be like the employees, you'll need to pay for that, but those benefits can be helpful in some situations related to medical reimbursement and other benefits that they have. So the sign-up period is pretty short. It rolls over and would begin on the first of the year. The last day to sign up, if you're interested, is, I think, December 3rd. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about that or want to sign up, I just encourage you on an individual basis to contact Mr. Hines, and he can get you to a location where we're going to sign up. So again, thanks to Mr. Rogers for continuing to ask about that, and Jason checked on that for us, and that's something you can access. Any questions about that? I'll let Jason answer the questions if you have them. I've used it through the years. It can't, especially medical reimbursement, healthcare savings account stuff. Okay, very, very good. At this time, I want to invite Ms. Frisbie and Nathan up to join me, and I want to talk a little bit about our situation with the interim budget resolution. Mr. Burnett, I just now announced that board members can access Pierce benefits, that's medical reimbursement and so forth, and Brooke will send you a communication, and if you're interested in that, you can contact Jason, but the turnaround for benefits during 2022 is pretty quick, like in the next month or so. All right. So, as you all know, many of you have been on the Finance Committee, and we often talk about the budget and budget preparation and other things during work sessions and certainly board meetings and board hearings. And it is normal practice for us and the commissioners and other school systems and public entities in North Carolina to pass an interim budget resolution, and that's basically you all saying, well, while we wait from the end of June until we get a state budget, which we, get in July or August, sometimes later than that, we'll just pass this resolution and let the superintendent make sure we, don't do anything too crazy with the budget. After several discussions with our auditors who just visited with us, they'll be doing their final presentation in December. And after talking, with Nathan and Deborah, we thought it would be good to go ahead and pass a budget resolution that looks a lot like last year's budget. It will just be helpful. I talked with Casey Crook on a related matter today, He's working on his doctoral stuff, and he had a bunch of questions for me for one of his classes. And I said, wouldn't it be helpful, Casey, if you really had some number for your 061 funds? And he's like, it sure would. So what we want to do is a brief presentation like we normally do when we're planning a new budget, and then just let you know that if you are okay with this, we'll let finance look at it again on Monday at their meeting and see if they have questions, and then bring it to the full board later on Monday for approval. But it's essentially last year's budget with tweaks and adjustments for benefits and other things. A few of the lines are up, a few of them are down, and anything that we do will change. And it will probably change significantly when we get a state budget. When we get a state budget, we'll do those adjustments. Those adjustments will make some of our local current expense budget look a lot better. Hopefully, it may make some of those lines look a whole lot worse, but whatever we do, it will look a whole lot different. Any questions? Nathan, did you give them information?
I did.
Okay. So, again, not to take too much of your time, we'll go through it sort of procedurally. The last several years, we've shown you more than the resolution. That's just what we do, and we sort of go through each code and tell you what's in it. So you'll be very familiar with the way that this looks. But what we'll ask you to vote on Monday, again, if there aren't any objection, is this sheet, which puts the budget in this format. We've used this format through the years. But the part that's easier to understand and that we have used for years is the sheets. I guess the part is and the sheets are, work on my English verb agreement here, are the sheets with the green coating at the top. So if it's okay, we'll just take turns and present different parts of it, myself and Deborah and Nathan. And then if you have questions along the way, you can ask those. Like I said, you should be pretty familiar with most of it because you've seen it before. Is that okay, Mr. Francis and board?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Put my glasses on here. So I'll just take the first sheet. 001, you all are very familiar. That's local teachers. We have 20 some odd. That'll change or go up or down depending upon what the state does. Local teachers in there. We also have some lead teachers, and that's the section of the local budget where we put some summer support for band directors and football coaches. Central office administration, you can see the first couple lines. We've got directors and supervisors in there. We have the assistant superintendent in this part of the budget. You can see she's in there. We have related supplement pay and a benefit cost, and then some other things just related to operating central office services toward the bottom: postage, membership fees, liability insurance, vehicle insurance, those kinds of things. That was 002. In 003, that's non-instructional support. If you look at the big items, the second one, 151, that's basically school clerical that's out there. I'll catch you up in just a second, Mr. Francis. And then if you go down not quite halfway, you see 1.1, almost 1.2 million, and then a couple other numbers. That's all of our utility, electrical, natural gas, water cost. We have some waste management, and then we also have some repair parts, fuel, and vehicle liability insurance. Mr. Francis, what I told him was we just feel like it would be important to go ahead and establish a budget rather than operating on the interim budget resolution, because it's November and it's just so late. And if that's okay with the board and you all pass that on Monday, it'll change a lot when we get a state budget. We don't know what the changes will be yet. So any questions about that page? All right. I think Ms. Frisbee's going to do page 2.
So, you've got PRC 005, which is the school building administration. That basically supports, locally funded assistant principals, salaries and benefits. And, the school's, copier cost is also reflected in that PRC. For 007, it's instructional support, which is local support for, either, media counselors or social workers. And then your school nurse contract is paid for out of this PRC as well. PRC 009 supports longevity payments, annual leave payoff, bonus leave payoff for your locally funded employees. And then, of course, 014 is career tech education, and that's just local support for your CTE program.
Any questions about that page, board? All right, thank you.
Okay, on page 3, PRC 015, that is our computer, the replacement cycle. Per year, 027 is our teacher assistants locally paid. Our PRC 032 is our exceptional children program support with their supplies and materials. 034 is our academically gifted program support with tutor pay and travel reimbursement, supplies, materials. 036 is our payment to charter schools. 054 is our English language learner program support. 056 is our local cost for transportation of pupils. 061 is our class materials, instructional supplies, and equipment. 069 is our at-risk student services for supplies and materials. 072 is middle school remediation for supplies and materials. 301 is our JROTC program in the high schools. And BRC 706 is our ineligible local transportation costs that are not reimbursed from the state.
And then, as a reminder, you don't see elementary remediation in here. That's Title I Federal 50. And the high school, I think you'll see in a minute, is Ms. Frisbie will have that in the next group. All right, thank you. Any questions about those?
Yes, Dr. Bill, let's see. I mean, it looks like it's a good trend so far. But I noticed that the gas and fuel, and I'm just picking out this, maybe nitpicking right now. I know that you're budgeting $2,000 less on gas and diesel fuel, and I don't see that coming out less.
Well, it is a budget plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And you all know this. Y'all, many of you have served on finance, and multiple people of you have chaired the finance committee. One of the things, as you'll remember, our student numbers are down, right? So our local support, even though we have a great formula, is a little lower, and we have some benefit costs that we expect might be higher, and so a few of these lines are down. One of the things that we did, it's a great question, one of the things that we did last year after we got the state budget to really make the budget pretty tight and not put fund balance in up front is we cut several lines by 3 or 3.5%. And so this is to get us started, and it will be more realistic when we know exactly what the state is going to do. And I think the state budget will help us in some of these areas, and it may not help us in others. And I don't think we're going to know that until we get that state budget.
Is the majority of the decreases, are they based off student population or actual expenditures in 2021?
Well, Yeah, I may have to get Nathan and Deborah to help me with that. I do know that, we just try to plan on what our revenues are, what we think they will be, and we just don't know all of them yet. We have a pretty good grip on the local because of the formula, and we know that they are funding us for a smaller proportion of students. So that's certainly part of the changes.
Yeah, and the 3 to 3.5% was really based on the less students, so the population. And we won't know the specifics of that until all that comes out from the state with charter schools and stuff.
Do you know was the charter school numbers up, or do we know if they're about the same as they have been, or do we know?
Yeah, we know the local charter appears to be up. We really won't know the number of students at the brick and mortar local charter. We really won't know the exact number of all those students who are Haywood County students until we start paying them. And I think that process is just beginning to start because they send us a bill and a list, and we pay them their proportion each month.
So that 800,000 is probably going to be more than that.
It might be, right. I told you they had all been on the finance committee before. They're asking the questions. Yes, thank you.
So we're on the top of page 4 now. So PRC 800 is your safe schools, and that supports your gate security guards and your gate security assistants, as well as your drug screening program. 803 is band and cultural arts. That's basically support for your supplements for your band and chorus programs. 804, high school remediation, and that's just additional local support for supplies and materials. 805 is system instructional supports, and that supports a lot of different programs and large instructional purchases. It could be for AIG, summer school, PE. And I think that's all on mine. I started to keep talking.
I have a question. The 802 athletic coach supplements, is that including the increase that we did with the percentage, or is that something, am I thinking something different?
We paid that last year, did we not?
Yes.
Then
So
it would,
that's the number.
then it would be in there if we did it last year.
Okay, well,
Okay, PRC 806 is our computer support with ITC, their salaries and travel and repair parts and equipment. 807 is our curriculum development with their travel and supplies and materials. 809 is our in-school suspension with our teacher assistant salaries and any overtime or benefit pay. And 813 is our county supplement.
Any questions about those, Board? And then I'll take us home here on the last page and we'll answer any additional questions. So we have a small community public relations budget. Most of that goes for advertising, congratulations, graduates, happy holidays. We do spots and so forth and so on. We do have some membership fees in there. And some supplies and materials if we're printing things, and some workshop costs if we have any. We don't always have them related to public relations. And then we have some funds in there to recognize our employees and to do some employee celebrations and recognitions. That has been more difficult during COVID to gather, as you all know, inviting them to board meetings or having an end-of-year function where we're all inside and can have a meal. But we feel like we still need to budget that, and hopefully we can return to that. School resource officer contracts. We contract with the various law enforcement agencies and related costs for vehicles and their repair parts and fuel. And then Pisgah High School baseball field flood renovation, we've got some funds in there, and we know that some of these things will be covered with insurance or through FEMA, and Dr. Putnam's going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I think that line actually is probably more the rental and the lease than it is flood renovation. I think we may have just not labeled that like we had in the past. Yeah, Trevor's whispering to me. Dr. Putnam's going, that's what it is, that's what it is. And then we have some unbudgeted funds, which is normal to put in the budget. And so, you can see that our overall budget from 2021 with local funds at this point has gone from 17,085,842 down to 16,942 674. And so again, fewer students. And when you look at the revenues that we anticipate, we've talked about this many times before, that top number of 16,526,000, we feel really good about that because that's the commissioner's formula and they have the numbers and they've made a commitment to provide that. The fines and forfeitures, as you know, especially during COVID, can be down or they may start back and it could go up. And the ABC revenues, we increased a little bit in the past, but we heard people maybe patronizing those businesses more during COVID, but we know that the ABC folks are still paying for some buildings that are pretty new. So those other two numbers are our best professional assessment of what we think will come in there. And then the pie chart, which you have seen many times, and as we do budget development in the middle of the year, you'll see more of those, is basically just the proportion or percentage of money that we're suspending in the local budget in different areas. So you can see that well over half of the budget, 52%, is for instructional services. In the 6,000 series, system-wide support services is 41%. And then ancillary is almost nothing, that's a pretty small percentage. And then non-program charges is about 6%. Any questions? That's more of a detail than what we actually ask you to vote on, but that's the information behind the resolution.
I do have a question. In the private sector, we're seeing across the board pretty much salaries increase. We're having to pay more to keep quality help. And I do think that'll bleed over into the school system, whether it be, hopefully the state's looking at that, and also supplements and so forth. I think some of that's going to come into play because I know at the credit union we're feeling it pretty strongly, and you just have to, it's almost like you're trying to keep up, but I think this budget, definitely the next budget, will be affected by some of that, or we'll start seeing some people leaving us and so forth. So, and I don't know what the state's going to do, what bordering states are going to do, or what bordering counties are going to do. But I think all of that will play into it. But it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm not a betting guy, but I would almost bet that you're right about that. We'll start with what the state does because we know we have to match it. If the state increases teacher salaries or hourly people categories by a certain amount, we have to match that locally and in our federal programs. We will not receive more local funds or federal funds to do that, but we'll have to provide those matches. We're hopeful that we'll receive some state funds in line items that would allow us to pay a little bit of our local expenses out of state rather than local. and that'll help us, but we really won't know until we see it. We just won't know. So, again, I think this is just, if you're willing to do this, this is just getting a budget on the books so more people can see, where we are right now, rather than just having something that the superintendent manages, which is not too bad to do for 6 weeks, but, we're in November now, and it just seemed very impractical to continuing having a continuing budget resolution, and the auditors in particular, Andy Deal, suggested that we just go ahead and pass something with the board's consent as close to last year's as we can with the changes that we know about.
Any further questions about the budget resolution? And this is the actual piece of paper we'll be voting on Monday night
Yes, sir.
for approval. Okay? Again, the budget is a planning instrument.
Yes, sir.
It's a changeable instrument, and it's a fluid instrument. I've always been reminded of that.
So, again, without objection, we'll let finance think about that and give us feedback on Monday if they have additional thoughts. And certainly, if we bring it to the full board Monday, then you'll have the opportunity to talk about it or approve it or not. But we like to, show it to you in advance so you'll have it and there aren't any surprises.
Before we get to the Monday's meeting, the one that we're going to pass, I'll have a question right now. Second page, section 8. Why do we have a 3,000 code that says lottery 0 and then local and other revenue? Are we just putting lottery into the local and other revenue? I mean, because I'm assuming we will be getting a lottery.
We will be getting some lottery money, but it's not been allocated yet. So once that.
So we're just leaving that blank until we.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome. I say we, like I work here, but I feel like I do. Sorry.
You're
Someone told me
contracted
the other
to work
day it
here.
was.
I am
Sad.
contracted, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well,
I've
someone told me
enjoyed
the other day that the lottery was a self-imposed tax. So I started thinking about it. I said, well, that's really true. If you go and buy a lottery ticket, you're giving it to the school system, so it's a self-imposed tax.
Plus, yes.
Well, a portion of it, yeah.
Very true.
Just be grateful we're getting some, Dr. Rogers.
Thank y'all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's all right. You did good to get here.
Pinehurst has been playing around, y'all.
So, uh-oh. If this doesn't go right, it's my fault. Yeah, Mr. Francis has it. Maybe we can copy his.
Oh, perfect.
Thank
How
you.
about the copy of the cross-state compensation?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I probably did not give that to Brooke. I'll blame it on the medication connected to my hernia surgery. So let me do an introduction. We, in the process of looking at compensation, we with your approval have passed a COVID-19 incentive bonus, and we have made a number of adjustments in the last 4 or 5 years in compensation for a lot of our employees. That started of late with Dr. Garrett, who worked on the certified employee supplement increase, and she did that And then, you know, we've worked on pay steps and duty pay and a number of things. You all know all those things because you've worked on them. So as part of the conversation, and I know you all may have talked a little bit about this individually, we realized that the board has not had a change in the compensation, and Brooke is printing what happens across the state. Mr. Francis is pretty familiar with that, with his state association connections, but we just thought it was a good time to look at that, and for you all to have some discussion about that. And, you know, that's obviously your decision, but, and you all usually don't take recommendations from me, or I don't provide them unless you ask for them. But I would say to you, it has been a long time. It has been a couple decades. And compared to other boards, school boards and commission and commissioners and everything else, yours is pretty low. So I apologize for the delay on the copying, and I'm glad Mr. Francis had his copy. But we'll get that to you in just a second. So I don't know if you want to talk any about that before those numbers roll in, Mr. Francis, or not.
Well, since Miss Jimmy's not here, I'll speak on my experience. Jimmy and I are the longest serving on this current board, and we're getting the same compensation we got 21 years ago. And I don't know how far back that goes. It's pointless to research it. But I do know that other boards of similar size are getting, let's say reimbursed is a better word I'd say, because there's a lot of time and travel involved in this reimbursement or compensation, however you want to say it. From similar size school systems are a lot more. And I think, you know, the concern was I had, probably about 2 years ago, I had some of the board members come to me and ask me to address that, and I felt like that, you know, maybe it wasn't a good time, things were not, you know, as tight. But now, given the situation with COVID-19, the number of meetings that we've had in the last 2 years, I mean, 40-plus meetings during a small time frame, really. And I felt like that, you know, to even put it in perspective, I think, you know, the chair gets, I think it's $1,800 currently now, and the school board members get $1,500 if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, in comparison, our county commissioners are making, you know, double-digit numbers, $14,000 to $15,000, and they meet twice a month. I know they have other meetings as well. And we're not asking for that either, but I'm just saying that it's something that you don't like to talk about personally, but it's something that needs to be discussed because there is a cost, and with these rising costs, as Mr. Burnett clearly pointed out, the cost of this fuel to ride around is getting higher and higher. And if you look at some of the school systems that are around us, McDowell County is doing about $500 a month for the chair, $400 for board members, just an example. Other systems are doing $300 or $400 a month. The chair generally gets a little bit more. You know, it doesn't matter to me. But it seems like down east, in eastern North Carolina, those boards are getting more highly compensated. I don't know whether it's just a trend. I was just looking. And believe me, I don't want to be on Charlotte Mecklenburg's Board of Education. They earn every penny of it with all their schools and responsibilities they have. They're getting, you know, like our county commissioners, they're getting into the $16,000 a year range, but they've also got 148,000 students. But if you look at similar school systems around us, and I did write on there what the Haywood County commissioners were making according to a news article that I was able to pull up. But Jackson County even $250, and we're getting currently compensated $150. So
Smaller districts.
smaller district, just for instance, and then, I mean, you can look through there. Smaller systems, I mean, it's all over the board. There's some school boards getting highly compensated, others are not, and we're in the not category. These are current as of 2019, if they're in the bar. I think I had shared some information earlier that was actually incorrect. That was in a news article, and
And this was from what, 2017, and it was.
yeah, it was
saying we were-
2017. It
we
was
were
saying
making almost double what we're.
almost
making.
double what we were
A
actually
little more than
doing.
double, yeah.
But anyway, if you look down through there, there's quite a bit of variance in it, but I think that, you know, the time is now, to do something, and I think it would also, more reflect the actual cost of our reimbursement or travel time. You know, you look at Swain County even, they're getting, you know, $350, and they've only got 2,000 kids in their system.
Mr. Chairman, while the board's looking, because they haven't had this very long, and I just want to turn the table on you just a little bit and say, you know, there are times when you all have talked to me about my compensation, and y'all have even said things to me like, well, you need to ask for money, and I just know that's an uncomfortable position for you to be in when you're looking at board compensation. So I'll turn the table a little bit and say to you, you all work hard. There's not another school board that I'm aware of in the state over the last 3 school years, maybe longer than that, but certainly over the last 3 school years, that has done more. There may be someone that's had 1 or 2 more meetings, but I can't imagine they've had a whole lot more. And you all have done the very hard lifting of lots of conversations and receiving public input on getting students back in school. And you've done really hard work on a number of issues that allowed us collectively as a school system, board, to our newest employees to move way up in the rankings. And I know it's hard to talk about out loud any kind of compensation that you might receive for what you're doing, but I do think you should consider that. And I do think this is the time, as Mr. Francis said. There are times when you do that, and there are other times when you pause and you don't. But that, you know, that's what I would say to you. I think it's time, and would suggest that you consider making an appropriate adjustment.
I'm gonna get per meeting, $250 per meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we would.
We were right quick. Get on the mic. I did talk to Kevin about it. I just asked him and Brandon, because we were talking about something else. Kevin Ansley said that now's the time, and he said if we've been overlooked a long time, and he said now's the time but he said it was up to us. He said it was not their responsibility. We had talked about it, we thought it was theirs, but he said it was up to us. But he did encourage us and say now's the time to go ahead and do it with inflation, the way things are going. So just, I wanted to add that in.
I suggest that we look at these numbers and, call me, text me, or whatever your thoughts are on it, or if you want to discuss it now, we will, but if you want to do it on an individual basis, then we can talk about it Monday night and,
I think it probably should go to the finance committee or.
oh yeah, I'm talking about it'll go through the finance. It's on the agenda, is my understanding, for the finance.
We'll get it on there if
If
it's
it's
not.
not, we need to. And,
Can you help me
on
remember?
the agenda for the big board as well, for the board meeting on Monday night. Okay? And then we'll look at it, There's some other things that might come into play is if we do it now, and then maybe have, according to what the budget looks like,
Right.
maybe look at it in July June 30th, look at it again for next year. And just, my thoughts are we could do it in 2 steps, we could do it in 1 step, we could do whatever you want to do, but let's talk about it, okay? And we'll bring it out through finance, and maybe finance come through with a recommendation, okay?
Sounds good.
Sounds good?
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Thank you, Board.
thank you.
Hope you'll consider that. The next piece of information is, thank you. The next piece of information is just, we started doing this the last couple meetings, and we can stop or we can continue to do it. It's just to lay the proposed Monday agenda in front of you and see if there's anything that comes to your mind that we may have left off. We've got so much, you all know this, especially with COVID and everything else that we're dealing with. We have so many things going on that we don't want to miss anything, and if you all look at it, you might think of something that, as we've talked to Mr. Francis about the meeting on Monday, that we've missed.
I do see that we have a Haywood Community College applicant. We have one, Dr. Ferguson, I believe it's Elizabeth Ferguson, if I'm not mistaken. And we will interview her. She's the first time appointee. I thought it would be best if we did, from a standpoint of, just because only one person applied doesn't mean we shouldn't vet that person. And even though I know she's a great person, so I'm not saying that, but I'm just glad that she has applied. I think she'll make a great trustee, but we'll talk to her and we'll do the normal questions in the interview on Monday night. Just happen to see that.
So any feedback on the agenda, just let us know. We'll talk to Mr. Francis about it and put it on there if it's appropriate.
Trevor was in here, I was gonna ask him if he wanted to add a few more of these, first readings.
Policies, no, I don't think we want him to do that. I know you're joking.
That's too many.
Okay. And then, the next, I'll introduce Jason's, presentation for the board. And I did invite principals yesterday in a principals meeting if they wanted to come hear this. Clearly, we have worked through successfully a number of COVID-19 related obstacles, from just getting back in the building to, reducing quarantines, and we're still working on things like that. But we've worked through a lot of things. But the big problem right now, and it's not unique to us, and we're not immune to it, but the big problem right now is staffing, in particular with substitutes across the board. We made the days swap in the calendar, moved a March day to November and a November day to March, is substitutes. And we're trying to follow our pattern of trying to figure it out if other people can't, and figure it out in a way that is palatable financially and politically and every other way. So Jason and I have talked several times. He has put together a plan for us, and we just wanted to share it for you for the first time. I don't know if we bring that back quickly or later or not at all, but we wanted you all to hear that plan. And then if it seems like something that we might want to try, then we'll need to make, a commitment to it and determine when we want to try to do it. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Dr. Nolte. Good evening, board members. As Dr. Nolte said, we have done much better than a lot of other places with staffing. When we did the vacancy report this month, we only had 2 certified positions unfilled on the 40th day of school, which was almost a surprise. Where we have struggled is with substitutes, teacher subs, bus subs, that sort of thing. But this presentation is really directed at the teacher substitutes for now. A few years ago, back around 2017, we implemented an absence management system, an online system, where all substitutes were put into the system, teachers were put in, everyone had an account. We're still using that. We call it SubFinder. Some people call it ASOP. Those were two different companies, but you know how that is, Pepsi, Coke, whatever, they're all sodas. But yeah. That system worked pretty well in the first year. It's still working, but it's not really the issue. It's not really the problem. It contributes to it in some ways, but it's not the issue. The overall issue is having enough subs at any given time that want to work that day. Okay, so you can have 250 substitutes on a list, and we love them all. We don't have that many, I can assure you, and I'll tell you here in a minute how many we have. We love all of our substitutes, but you could have 250 on a list, but if only 40 want to work on a Friday and you need 70, that's an issue. And so that becomes part of it. Right now, we currently have 107 substitutes on the list. Okay, 107. We added 10 the last 2 months. If you noticed on the last board agenda, we had 6 on there that we've added. We've posted it on Teacher Match, our mainline national board. We've put it on Facebook now, which is producing more applicants. We're very happy with the way Facebook has panned out. We're putting all job classifications on there now, and we're getting a much better, larger pool. Most people just don't think to go to Teacher Match when they're looking for a job. You know, they just don't. And so with Facebook, that has helped. But right now we have 107 substitutes. We have 87 that are actually working on a fairly regular basis. Now those others, some of them have taken long-term interim positions for like maternity leaves, surgeries, that sort of thing. A teacher may resign and go somewhere else, and we have a long-term interim in that position till we can hire another one. Every time that happens, it takes a sub out of the daily rotation. And we're thankful they're willing to do the interim, because that's a very difficult thing as well. So you've got those two things that you play with. Last year during COVID, we had 83 subs that worked fairly regularly and will receive the COVID bonus for part-time employees.
How many is that again?
83, sir. So what I've said for several years now is at any given time you'll have between 60 and 80 subs who want to work pretty regularly, regardless of how many you have on your list. And the trick to it is incentivizing more of them to work regularly. One of the things that we've run into with COVID is some of the substitutes, and we understand why, have said we do not want to work at multiple schools anymore. We don't want to go to all 15 schools. We want to go to one or two, these two, or just middle schools or whatever they've chosen. So that again reduces your number of available substitutes on any given day at any school. So the school they're willing to go to, let's say that they say, I picked Jonathan Valley Elementary. Maybe Jonathan Valley doesn't need a sub that day, but another school needs 5. But that sub is out of the picture, you see. So the more of those you have, the harder it is to staff as well. And in talking to principals and talking to teachers and talking to teacher assistants, this past year during COVID and this year, we have done some extraordinary things to make it available for TAs to substitute for their teacher or other teachers they're assigned to. And you've seen us do that on the personnel agenda. But that does put a significant stress on the TA. It puts a significant stress on the teacher they're supposed to be with and assigned to, and if they have to go to another one they're assigned to. So it's putting stress on TAs, it's putting stress on the teachers, and when we met with principals this week, other than student safety, I think this is probably the next biggest thing on their mind. Before, if you had a teacher call in sick at 7 o'clock in the morning, the teacher says, I can't really find a sub, I'm sick, I don't feel like doing that. Well, now we have Sub Finder that'll find one for you. And if it doesn't, then the principal could start calling a few and sort of sweet talking them, and before you know it, about 8 o'clock, you've got a sub and you go on to something else. Now, there's no one to call. If they're available to work, they're working. So there's no point to even call that morning. So what ends up happening is all day long, this is an issue for the principal covering that particular class with either other teachers who are on planning, which is another stress, or with some TAs that are assigned that can do it. And it's just a constant moving around the checkerboard trying to make that work. And so a problem that could end at 8 o'clock in the morning is still an issue at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you're having to do multiple swaps to cover these things. So just to give you some idea, using last year's numbers, and I'll tell you what it is up to this point this year. Using last year's numbers, we had 3,142 absences last year. And that's from October 5th through June 6th. Okay, 3,142 absences. 711 of those went unfilled. So 711 absences the principals had to deal with to figure out what to do. Okay, that was last year. So that means 2,431 of them were filled by us using the Sub Finder system with our current substitutes. This year, in August and September, and we really can't really count August. There just wasn't enough days in August, and there weren't that many absences in August. So really in September and October, we're averaging about 210 absences a month that are not filled. Okay, so if you do the math on that, we're going to be up there around 1,800 or something by the end of the year. Almost triple what it was last year. Now, what that looks like is last year on any given day, we needed somewhere between 14 and 25 subs depending on what was happening. Fridays are always an issue, backed up to a weekend. Any day backed up to a holiday can be an issue. Big training days. If we have to take out all the third grade teachers and do a reading training, that becomes an issue. You're going to need 60 to 80 subs just for the training sometimes. So last year, on any given day, we would need between 14 and 25 subs a day. This year, we're running between 25 and 40 a day. And that's, we don't want you to think that's a teacher's fault, that they're just taking days off and they're not wanting to come. It's not. A lot of it is quarantine. A lot of it is they are sick. A lot of it is their children are sick. Or their children might be quarantined or whatever. And this really isn't a thing to blame on quarantines, but it is part of it. Part of it is sickness, and part of it is taking a mental health day or extending a vacation just a little bit. Those things happen, and we understand. They work hard. They deserve days off when they need them. So,
I'm telling Jill she does not get a mental health day.
oh, okay. So there's a couple things we can do here. There's two routes you could go, well, really three. We could keep doing what we're doing and see if principals can make it work, which we don't really want to do. The second option is to go with an outside company. We have talked to a couple. We've talked to Kelly Services, and we have talked to a company called ESS. And we think that ESS has the better plan and probably can really do it from talking to other folks who have already contracted with them. I've learned over the years in doing this, particularly with software and things like that, that these folks are salesmen that you talk to first. And they will tell you they can fix your problem, and 99% of the time they can. But occasionally you get it where, no, they didn't really fix it. All right? And so they say they can fix our problem. Before COVID, the first year that we had absence management or subfinder or ASOP, whatever you want to call it, we were at 96% fill rate. Now, most days we're under 80, well under 80. Some days we're at 55%, depending on the day of the week again and what's going on. They say they can get it back over 90. Now, what are they promising us? All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. What they will do is, if you agree to do it, is they will take the current substitutes that we have, and they will employ them first, and then they will start recruiting and adding to the list of substitutes, and all the substitutes would be the employees of ESS. We would contract for them to fill our absences of our certified staff. They will also do custodians. They will also do teacher assistants. They will also do child nutrition if we want them to. The one thing they will not do, and no one else that we've ever talked to will do, and Trevor asks them incessantly during meetings, is bus subs. They simply will not. The liability, they say, is just too much, and they won't do that. So our substitutes would go to them. They would have a meeting with our substitutes and explain to them what they have to offer and employ them if they want. Robbie Nelson, that I have been working with ESS, says he's never had a substitute from a district turn them down and say, no, we don't want to work for you. So what do they offer the substitute? They offer them the same pay that we would right now. They pay them weekly rather than monthly, so that's an advantage for them. They do offer them insurance. I asked him how many days a month do they have to work to take advantage of your health insurance, and he said 3 days a month. And I thought that, I was surprised, but that's what he said. They do offer them weekly, monthly, and yearly bonuses based on how much they work. So if they work and meet the quotas of what they want them to work, they pay them bonuses. They give them incentive cards for going on short notice. So if we have one on Friday morning at 8 o'clock and we can't, they have someone that calls and talks to them, and they offer them a $40 gas card to come on in, or a little bit late on Friday and get there on short notice. So they have a lot of incentives that they can give that we cannot. All we can do is raise the pay, but we can't add all these other things to it for them. They also can have a retirement plan with them, with ESS. So although it might not feel good to turn our subs over to them who have worked with us for years, I think it's doing the subs a disservice in all the benefits that they can get by not doing it this way. So the sub-finder system would stay the same. They use the same software. Everyone would have the same accounts. Wouldn't be hard to transition. They said they need about 6 weeks lead time to get it started. The piece that I found the most attractive is, even if I were a principal or a teacher, is they would hire someone who we suggest to be their employee, who would sit in the central office, who would have an office there and would be an ESS employee, and they would be the supervisor or director of the subs. And if a principal had a problem with a sub or had a problem getting a sub there, they call that person and they deal with it immediately. That's their job to deal with it. It's their job to help recruit. This has a lot of implications as far as there is a markup. Of course, they need to make money. They have to be in business. The markup that they have offered us is very competitive. They're talking about 33.5%. The other companies we have talked to wanted somewhere between 36 and 40. That seems to be pretty much what they're offering other districts that we've talked to. There is some savings there, though. There is the time and effort among the finance and payroll staff in paying substitutes each month, pulling in that time, those days. It also saves us on paying the FICA and all the things that we have to pay on that. That goes over to them. And there is a way that they have offered to try to reduce the cost of this, which really kind of makes it a wash, okay? And that is if we would be willing to turn over the teacher assistants to them over time. Okay, and other districts have done this as well. And what that means is as teacher assistants retire, resign, leave for whatever reason through attrition, as that position comes open, you turn that position over to ESS. They recruit candidates for that position using the same criteria that we would. Then they let the principal interview and hire who they want out of that pool. And then they come to work at that school as a teacher assistant, but they're an ESS employee. Now, the benefit of that is for a teacher assistant, for us, it costs us about $34,000 between the $20,000 a year pay, the yearly insurance, well, it's about $6,500, plus all the taxes and payroll taxes and so forth. It's about $34,000. They would bill us $26,000. That's an $8,000 per position savings. So what they said to us is that if you would turn over 20 TA positions initially, and we have about 100 right now, if we would turn over about 20 of them and let them fill them through attrition, that the 33% markup would go away based on the number of subs we typically hire in a given year. The other advantage of this system is just like now, if we don't hire a sub, we don't pay anything. If we don't hire a sub through ESS, we don't pay anything either. There's no upfront fee, there's no sign-up fee, there's no upfront costs. The only time we get billed is when we fill a vacancy with a sub. Again, in how much we paid for subs last year, on average, an approximation with the markup, and then how much it actually cost us last year to fill them. The difference is about $160,000. And if you multiply 8,000 times 20, that's about, they were right, that's about what you get. So it's kind of a wash if you let them have the TAs. And over time, if you turn over more of that 100, that amount goes up and our cost comes down. So that turning over the TAs is not an absolute as part of the deal. They'll do it without that. You just have to pay the markup. So that's something to consider. Now, the other option is to not go with an outside company and still try to manage it internally, which I'm perfectly happy to do. But we would probably need to raise the pay rate to be competitive. When I posted the substitute job on Facebook, the comments were just,
Ugly.
it was ugly. I mean, well, no, I didn't delete them, but they, I was shocked at things people were saying in the community. Yeah, but I think to try to increase the number and give more incentive, we would have to go up, and other districts are going up. Currently, for an uncertified sub, we're paying $80 a day for 8 hours, so that's about $10 an hour. And for a certified sub who has a teaching license, we're paying $103 a day. Other districts are talking, you know, of 100 to 110 for an uncertified, and between 120 and 140 for a certified. So either way, I think it will cost us more money, and if we can solve this problem for our teachers, who, when they are sick or their child is sick and they need someone for the children in the classrooms, and for the principals and the TAs, either way, the money is well spent. It's just how y'all feel about which way you want to go with it.
I'd like to add, can I add I'm sorry. Let me add one comment before you all start discussing and having questions. What I would not recommend is trying to attract them with a pay increase and then going with the company, because then you're paying the markup on the pay increase. Okay? So I think if we do something, and I think we should, we either need to try to get them with a pay increase and know that it's not going to be very financially wise at all to go with a company later because there's a markup on it, or we just go with the company. I told the principals Wednesday and yesterday and told them they could come tonight and hear the initial conversation if they wanted to. And I told them, I said, well, it's a plan. No one else has figured this out. We're trying to, and it might work, but it might also be very unpopular because there are lots of little nuances to it. You know, there's always more than the plan that the salesperson describes to you. But anyway, again, we'd like to work on problems, and you know, we may have a solution here, we may not, but we wanted you all not to be the last ones to hear about it, but the first ones, and to try to get your feedback and questions.
What do the principals think about it?
Well, they haven't heard it. We didn't want, you know, we wanted to get your initial thought. I as a former principal, and all of us over here except Pat are, you know, former principals. You know, it just feels funny when it's not your employee. It feels a little funny when you've had Susie Q every time and you may not get her, but you know, chances are you still would get her or he or she, get them, the persons, the people when you wanted them. It's a different feel, certainly. So there are always pros and cons to a plan. There's no doubt about that.
In relation to that, we would still use the same subfunder system with the same accounts. And in that system, a teacher can designate 5 of their favorite subs.
Yeah.
And it would go to those 5 first, and if it didn't fill, then they would start looking elsewhere. So teachers do have some control over who shows up in their room, but if all 5 of those really good subs are already booked, if it's really short notice, then they would go looking for someone to fill it.
You know, to answer the question about it doesn't feel like your employee, I work a temporary, basically year-round now, and he's just my employee. I mean, you're still the captain of the ship at that location. You're going to be the boss man.
Yeah.
You're getting paid through it's almost like a payroll system in my mind. I would say that the principal would still have the authority to
They do. The
quote unquote boss them around, tell them what to do and what not to do.
They
And,
made that very clear that they are.
I mean,
to
that would be
answer
my
to-
concern. If I lost control, it'd be a different ballgame. But I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I'm getting an earful from teachers about, how much they're having to do because somebody wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it's legitimate reasons.
Sure.
I mean, my own daughter's son was sick a couple of days, and if Vicky hadn't have taken care of him, and they still missed a day or two, And then you put on top of that 14-day quarantine period because Johnny got sick. Not they didn't get sick, but the kid did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a price to pay, but the bigger price is to start losing teachers to the profession. Is what my concern is. But anyway, I'll shut up and let everybody else talk.
And just to verify, they have made it abundantly clear that the principal would be in charge. They would answer to
Yeah.
the principal.
Absolutely.
If the principal had a sub they did not want back at their school, they would make that happen.
Now, how would the TAs work? I mean, so you're saying right now, what was the pay that the school system for a TA is?
34,000.
And you're saying that if we went with this contract service and we gave them 20 up front, that our cost to them would be 20 what?
26,000.
But now, would they be losing anything that we offer that they might not get if we?
Retirement.
The only difference is they would not be a state employee anymore. They would be an employee of ESS.
Would the retirement that they've accrued already go away with the state?
It would not go away. They would have to wait a time period to draw anything from that retirement.
It would freeze.
It would freeze.
What would be the difference
They wouldn't
between,
accrue any more years though, right?
That's correct. They would not
what
accrue.
would they do, what would be the difference between ESS retirement versus, state employee?
I do not know that. I'm pretty certain they use a 403 type system, 403B type system for retirement.
Well, and the other question I've got is on the TAs, what about, not only would they lose state retirement,
Well, here's
not lose it, but it would be frozen. Anybody new would not be eligible for
Well,
state retirement, but what about, insurance? Is it gonna be a comparable insurance?
Well, as far as the retirement, no one's going to lose anything because the only people they're replacing are ones who have resigned or left us.
Right. But it wouldn't be available to anybody
So
else.
anybody coming in would be a brand new employee who would start off on ESS retirement and benefits. They wouldn't lose any state because they're a brand new employee. They don't
Yeah,
have
but if
it.
They don't get state employees, or
If the
they don't get retirement
If the
anyway.
retirement ain't the same,
I believe they
or similar, then the quality of TAs that you hire would go down. Most likely, because that isn't a attractor to people. Just like insurance, the state employees' insurance program compared to ESS's insurance program, I'd need to know if they're comparable.
Well, we could certainly find out what they offer. What we have found in talking to most people, though, that are turning us down is the state insurance is not as good anymore. Most private company insurance is much better. They may have to pay more for it, but, it's, the deductibles and so forth for state insurance has gone up so much.
Then my other question is on insurance is if, for substitutes, they do have insurance availability, but is it at marketplace price? I mean, is there really an advantage, or is the marketplace going to determine how much people pay for insurance, period?
Right.
So it's,
Well,
we got this plan, but it ain't no different than the marketplace plan.
well, they don't have opportunity for insurance with us, period. So
They still get the marketplace.
Subs don't.
they still have the marketplace.
And so, and the same thing with them, if the marketplace is the same, then it's the same.
I would suspect that with a company, it would be less than the marketplace, because they're in a group plan. But again, I can get those details for
And
you.
you probably, some of the subs are gonna be retired teachers anyway, so they're probably,
They're not gonna want it,
they're not gonna want the insurance because they've got state insurance already.
but they would benefit from weekly pay, from bonuses,
Bonuses and-
from, incentive cards, that sort of thing that we're not allowed to give.
Are they talking 20 current TAs, or are they talking 20 positions that are currently unfilled?
They would fill them through attrition.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to hand them 20 on the first day.
Yeah.
You just, as TA positions come open, you would turn them over to them until you got to 20, and then we'd go.
So whoever would retire with us,
We would replace them with an ESS. Yes.
Right, and they wouldn't,
They wouldn't even know
Ever-
there was a change.
yeah, they would.
This is what you're gonna get.
They
That
wouldn't.
You can
employee-
take it or leave it.
Yeah, that employee would have no idea of what.
When you said you were gonna give them 20, it kinda concerned me like Dr. Rogers. 'Cause
No,
you don't wanna take anything away or add anything.
no, we don't
Anything.
either. We don't wanna do that.
I agree. And
No.
as attrition goes, I don't have a problem with it, really.
It could take a couple of years or more, or
It
5
could.
years.
It could.
Yeah.
Depends
Well,
on
we-
the
well, if they're taking $8,000 less than what we're paying, you gotta follow that money. They're not taking an $8,000 loss.
No, they're not.
I think where we're saving is,
The,
I think where we're saving is work.
No, but the employee's gonna have to.
How's that gonna make?
Well, here, is our problem has worsened since COVID
Oh,
started.
my. Oh, my.
Because, well, my concern is, it's hard for everybody to find employees now, and I'm not sure ESS has got a magic wand out there somewhere. But what would make us think that they could find employees easier than we could find employees?
Well, again, they have recruiters who work for them,
Marketplace.
that do nothing but try to bring in these, candidates for the pool. And,
Companies don't do this without making money.
well, they've got a 33.5% markup, so, you know, they're getting it that way.
If you give them 20, then they're getting their 33.5 somewhere else.
Right.
But they're gonna get it somewhere.
They're gonna get it somewhere.
so instead of paying the TA 26, they may just pay them 23. So they,
Well, they will pay them what the state pay is, which is 20,000. And they will pay the subs what we're paying them, and they can't lower the pay. That's part of the contract. They can't ever lower the pay. We are the ones that will determine what the pay is going forward. So if, 5 years from now, you want to give substitutes a raise, knowing that there's a markup that goes with it, you're welcome to do that. They will up the pay, and they can't ever lower it.
So what kind of, for the TA, well, and the substitutes also, I mean, even when you put someone on the substitute list, you check them, make sure they're good, so on and so on, background checks. So will they be doing that with the new substitutes and also
Yeah.
the new TAs that they would be bringing in? And then you would, on top of that, verify that, or would you just take their word that they did it?
We would have control of the background checks, and we would also have control of the onboarding process as far as what they're told in orientation, what they can do and what they can't do, following our board policies. All of that is tailored by us, and they do the training, but it's tailored by us of what we want them to be
The
told.
way we do it, we provide them with all the training materials, the videos and all that.
Yeah.
That employee shows up at your gate, they're trained, certified to the specifications you gave them. It's a neat operation. I love it because it's just, it costs you some. But what we're doing now is insanity if we keep doing the same thing and not getting any more.
What I understand, the way they're saving the money, Dr. Rogers, is they're paying them the 20,000 like a TA, 20,000. We are mandated by the state how much we have to pay as an employer for the insurance. They can negotiate that. So if we're paying about $6,800 a year right now per employee for the employer part of the insurance. If they can negotiate that down to $3,000 or $3,500 or $4,000, then that's a saving. It's also, they're showing us a savings on, they can do the payroll part of it easier than we can. And they, on the tax side of it, it's lowered. So how they really get to $8,000, I really didn't ask, as long as they can provide a good TA for us. How they make the sausage behind the scenes, really, you know.
So would the TA still come before the board for approval like we have been? I mean,
They
employees, you know, we always like personnel.
yeah, you could approve them, sure. They would be selected by the principal, which was the trigger for me. It's not like they're going out and finding somebody going, yeah, we found a cheap TA, here you go. They're just providing the pool, and then the principal gets to choose. And if they don't like any of them, then they go find some more, you know. To me, the recruiting aspect of it, that they're paying people to do that recruiting, and they do their own recruiting fairs. They put out flyers in the parking lot, you know, at Walmart on the car windows. They do a lot of things that we really can't do to try to bring in more candidates.
Is the $80 a day and the $103 a day mandated by the state, or is that something locally as a county?
The state sets a range,
Okay.
and that is the low end of the range.
You know, to me, I think we're dancing around the elephant in the room with that and the bus people that Trevor was talking about a minute ago. You know, taking away benefits for bus drivers, reducing hours, giving minimum hours. You know, to me, it all boils down to money, number one, and probably number two, who and where you work for. And you mentioned substitutes taking certain schools. You know, I would be willing to bet that part of that is because they prefer working for certain principals, APs, teachers, whoever that is. Their child may go to that school, etc. But, you know, $80 a day, you know, $10 an hour, and Sonic's down here paying $20 an hour, like David mentioned a minute ago. You know, I think that we bump that somehow, and I'm not against the ESS thing, but I think we bump that somehow to create a better number. We obviously get a better pool of substitutes, bus drivers, etc. My first cousin is an associate superintendent in Marietta, Georgia. They're given $100 a day bonus. Can we do that? No. I fully realize that, but something to get the sub list up, bus drivers, subs, everything like that. So I would be all for increasing that number also if we do not go ESS.
Well, and I think that's part of the choice, you know.
Yeah.
Jason's
ABC.
described three, we're not, you know, we can do nothing,
Yeah.
which we don't want to do. We can go for a pay increase, or we can go with the company, but if we're going to go for the pay increase, if that's what we pick,
We can't go ESS then.
you all just saw the proposed budget before what the state does to it. It's tight.
My question would be, if it's going to cost you 33.5% more to pay these people, and if you gave them a 33% raise, would that fix the problem? And paid it straight to the people and cut out the middleman?
That's exactly where I was headed. There's money here. People's not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. This company's making money. Is there a way, do you help your employees at the cost of the middleman and figure out how to manage it internally? If they can hire somebody to sit in our place to manage a system, it's got to be profitable. There's got to be a way to cut the middleman out and replicate the same thing. So to me, it really boils down to how is the sausage made. Now, let me say this. Jason, I know this is a lot of work you've done, and you've done a great job of laying it out here. I mean, very clear. It's, and I'm so visual, I like to have it wrote down so I can say, don't like this. But you've done a great job of presenting, and I think it's one of the things that I appreciate about this administration is you guys think out of the box. And I think we're at a place where we have to do that. So I think you've challenged our thinking, but for my little mind, these guys are probably fine, but for my little mind, that's a lot of information to digest. I can't wrap it up in my head right at this very moment.
We don't expect you to, I don't know.
I'll just add something. One of the challenges that we see in many of the support service departments, we are provided a set compensation package. And based on what I'm seeing, the current job seeker is not interested in what we have to offer. Oh, we've got retirement.
They don't intend to be here 30 years anyway.
Right.
We have a 30-year pay scale for bus drivers. How many 30-year drivers do you think we're going to see at a quarter a year raise or a nickel? And so we have an antiquated compensation package. None of us created it. The state created it, and at the time, and for many of us, was very attractive. I'm simply saying the current job seeker does not find that attractive.
Right.
Because I'm quite sure there are no additional compensations for working at Sonic for $20 an hour. They just want the money.
Well,
And that's food for thought, and I'm not promoting one or the other, but that is what we're up against. We have compensation that maybe our job seekers don't value.
Well, our compensation system's antiquated. I agree 100% with that. But also, the way, how do I say this without saying it wrong? The way we manage that system is a little antiquated too.
Yeah.
Because we've not been successful, obviously, in figuring out what does attract people now versus when it worked really well with COVID or whatever.
Well, to your point, Trevor, I think that it's a difference between people looking for a career and people looking for a job. And that's sort of the difference, and that's why some of these extra benefits and stuff is not attractive to people, because they're not looking for a career. They're just looking for something to pay the bills right now.
Take his a step further too, and changing the subject from substitutes though to bus drivers. You're asking people to come in on minimum pay and kind of, come in early in the morning, work a couple hours, and then quit, and then have to come back a second time that day, work a couple hours and quit. And some of them, there's some of the routes that aren't even 5 hours a day, are they? And I know I'm off on substitute on the bus driver, but if we could do like a minimum hour for a bus driver, that may help too, if they're guaranteed X amount of hours.
I want to chime in, and I know exactly what y'all are saying, but what they're saying is I'm the only one, I know I'm the only one in HR program right now, but in all three of our classes, what we're talking about is what you just said. There's no careers. Nobody's doing a career anymore. That's what we talk about every day in our classes. I've got 3 groups. We solve these problems theoretically, and then we do it sometimes for other companies. What they're saying is you can add the $3 an hour, but it's still going to be $7 less than Sonic. And it's going to cost us twice as much because of the insurance and the FICA and all that. So we're still going to come out way negative if you pay them $3 an hour more.
That's more benefits.
$5 an hour. What we're going to have is a ROI. We're going to have a return on investment. You're going to put this in writing. I know exactly what you're saying because we just talked about this all week in my classes. trying to explain it, and I know exactly what they're saying, but it's the same reason I walked out of the mill in March. Wasn't all my choice, but they'd had nothing else to offer me. You know, $100,000 was not enough for me to stay there and put up with 7 days a week. The benefits and all, it was not enough for me to do it. I said, I'm had enough. I'm walking out. That's what you gotta think about is in our society, we talk about it every day. We talk about it over and over and over. 5 years is a max now in a career. For somebody to stay 20, 30 years, and I don't know if any of these teachers are, we see them all the time leaving and going, starting their own business, stuff like that. I know exactly where y'all come from, and you got some good ideas, but I think we really need to look at this a little bit closer.
I think we gotta dive into it a little deeper.
You gotta weigh it out, and I agree. I was just gonna throw that in.
The whole of this thing is, we're saying, in essence, that if you're a teacher's assistant, they're not really attracted by the retirement and the benefits so much. So we're gonna offer substitutes, retirement and benefits through another company and see if we can attract them that way.
I think we're talking about two different things. You know, and I think they're trying to group it all together to make it affordable, but we have a substitute issue and then the TA issue, and they're a little bit different. Each one's a little bit.
Do we have a TA issue?
Well, let
We
me,
don't, but
Jason's
that's-
probably about to say that. We
TAs is the
But that's making.
boost to the
That's what they
company.
want, exactly.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of difficulty hiring traditional teacher assistants. They have to have 48 hours of college work. Sometimes that's a barrier for people that we're really interested in. And usually when we advertise a TA position, we can find one. Now, when we do a non-traditional TA position, maybe they're going to do behavior assistance with students or something, that gets harder. The TA part, and Jason said this earlier, I just want to repeat it, that's just the company's offer to help us sort of balance the cost. Our TAs are not a problem. They're a real asset, real benefit to the school system.
The TA is not the driver of why we are trying to do this. It is an offset of the cost. If you don't want to give them TAs, that's fine. It's just going to cost about $160,000 more to do the program than it would if you did give them some TAs. The thing with TAs, like Dr. Nolte said.
TA saved them that amount of money.
I'm sorry?
Somewhere they're making that amount of money or more.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to find out where that is for you. I know that's driving you crazy, but I will find out. If we don't give them the TAs, that's fine. I was just saying that's an option to save some of the money on doing it. The real thing here is the recruiting aspect of this. The turnover now is incredible. If y'all have noticed on the board agendas, they're 3 and 4 pages every month. Used to, it was pretty lengthy in May or June, July, August, beginning of August. And then you could almost take a vacation in the fall as far as hiring. Margaret Rogers is wide open, and I am too, and so is Cindy, and so is Amanda Gentry. We've hired twice as many in October as we did the entire fall 3 years ago before COVID. So the turnover is incredible. We are having bus drivers, substitutes, TAs who are being onboarded. We're spending the money to onboard them, to train them, to get them ready, and they're leaving in 3 weeks. Some of them won't even come to orientation because they've already found another job after the principal's offered. Margaret, there's no telling how much money we spend on background checks on people who don't show up the first day of school and won't call you. You can't find them, So, although we can find a pretty good pool of TAs, the turnover is incredible. Byron at Clyde has hired 6 in the last 4 weeks. Just turning them over. You know, that he'll hire them, one will quit. He'll hire two more will quit. You know, it's, so the turnover is the thing, and that's the same thing with substitutes. When you are looking at the substitutes, we hired 10 last month, and yesterday Margaret called about 20 off the list because they hadn't took a job in a year. So, well, it's the recruiting part that you're paying for, that they get the people in here. That's what we're trying to get, is get them in here. We'll deal with them once you get them here. And this company says they can deliver them. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. You know, I'll tell the guy, if you don't, my name will be Mud, but, you know.
Is there like a contract length? I mean, is it something we could try it for 6 months or a year?
You can quit anytime you want with a 30-day notice.
Okay. So it may be something we try and see if it does fill it, and then if it doesn't, then say, okay, we're done, and then
back up, punt, and do something different.
And try to do our own thing.
Now, we are using Kelly.
That was my other question.
Yeah, are we not using Kelly for food?
We have been using them for food service, and we tried it with custodians, but the custodian situation sort of solved itself. The child nutrition subs are very difficult to get to, and I would suggest turning them over to ESS as well.
Now, is Kelly still doing that, or are we still using Kelly for anything?
We have used Kelly some, but Allison is not real happy with them. They had a personnel change in the person that was managing the western part of North Carolina, and it kind of went downhill. So we would suggest turning those over to ESS as well if we do it.
Well, the only concern I always have with bringing any kind of contract service in, especially when it comes to personnel, is the school system, you and the principal having not really their hands tied, but if, let's just say, if a substitute or a TA, I would think that if one school has a problem with them, especially a TA, if we go that way in any route once we discuss or whatever. Substitute might be a little different because a substitute at one place might be a better fit for another school.
Yeah.
A substitute. The TA might be a little different. That just making sure that they're not in the school system if we don't want them there.
Yeah, and that will be part of the contract.
Yeah, I mean,
we will have final say on who is hired and whether
then
they
once
stay
they got
or
in,
not.
if they got in trouble or whatever.
And we would manage it much like we do now. If a substitute does something that a principal doesn't like or is against a board policy or whatever, we investigate that, and then Dr. Nolte will make the decision along with the principal whether they can come back to that school or not, and then whether they can work in the district or not. And so a principal has the right to say, I don't want this substitute on my campus anymore. And we can say, okay, they can work at 14 other schools. If they haven't done something so egregious that we don't think they should be around our children, period. If they have, then Dr. Nolte says, you don't work for us, period, anymore. And that would be the same plan with ESS. One of the good things about having them as a partner, though, would be if someone had done something that was just a policy violation or a procedure violation, they would take them out and completely retrain them before they send them back. Right now, we don't always have that option. So, they were very clear that our principals make the final decision on who's hired and who stays on their campus.
Here's my concern. I bet you every HR person in the state, probably in the country through COVID, feels like they need an easy fix. These guys are promising a lot. I'm not sure they can deliver because everybody's got their signs out of the now hiring sign everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You got a lot of fast food restaurants that's got their doors locked because they don't have enough help to get it out. You got a lot of these subs that just don't want to come in because a lot of them are older people or whatever. They don't want to come because they're afraid of COVID. And so I'm not sure that they can deliver the end-all, fix-all for us, but if they could, it'd be the magic one. I don't know, what would you think about a temporary service where they had a pool of their own and we used their people, but we had our own pool, but we just, for instance, froze hiring here and let them see what they could do filling above and beyond, just fill the holes that we can't fill on the subs? Are they interested in
I don't think
that?
they would take it that way. They would not be interested in, they're gonna need all the absences to fill to be able to make money, as y'all have pointed out.
Okay.
You know, I'm certainly not trying to shirk any work. I will be happy to continue doing this. And if you want to raise the pay to try to draw them, as Dr. Putnam has said before, you know, this past summer, we almost doubled the pay and it didn't make a difference on some positions. And, I don't know what kind of magic sauce this company might have, but, you know, they have Jackson County right next door to us is signed with them. They just signed Winston-Salem Forsyth. They've been with them this school year, and they just signed Wake County. And so if they think they can solve Wake County's problem, I'm not sure that ours would be a big issue. But
My suggestion would be, like as Bobby said, let's dissect it and look at it, and then also you might get some results from Jackson County or whoever's doing it now. Just talk to their HR people and see are they really, if they're really able to deliver.
right.
I'm all for the ESS on substitutes, but, you know, and I'm the young gun here, I realize, as far as tenure on the board, but the year that I've been on here, we keep talking about a shortage of substitutes. We keep talking about a shortage of bus drivers, a shortage of TAs. Every one of those positions are our lowest paid positions.
That's right.
We never have a hard time filling central office positions. We never have a hard time filling principal position. We never have a hard time hardly even filling a teacher position. So I definitely respect what Ronnie said, but to me, it's the pay. You know, I mean, I think you could take the 100,000 whatever savings, create our own position, create our own recruiter for TAs, bus drivers, which I know we've talked about with bus drivers, but, you know, in the year I've been here, we're always talking about these same 3 or 4 positions. We're never talking about the higher paid positions. So to me, the money does have something to do with it.
You think about, let's say we hit the model that we described earlier, and you got 1,800 unfilled substitute positions this year.
Yes.
Wonder if you took and increased across the board, whether they're certified or uncertified, 20 bucks a day. Say instead of 80, it's 100, instead of 103, it's 123.
That's 33, almost
That's only
33.
$36,000.
Yeah, but that's almost 33% of what we'd be paying, plus any other tax benefits and stuff like that.
But that's 36,000. And you're spending 160,000.
We don't pay for those positions unless we use them.
That's correct.
So that's, I think, what the 108,000 is coming for, if they use all, what was the number, 3,142 absent?
If they filled every position 100%,
Yeah,
markup
not
would
just
be
the ones that were
60%.
unfilled, it's the whole, that's the 108,000 is coming from that number, not.
You mentioned they would provide a pool to the principal. Does the principal have to hire a person from that pool, or can he or she say, I don't like any of them, can you provide me another 4 or whatever?
yes, they don't have
Okay.
to,
So
they
they don't
don't,
necessarily have to hire.
they don't have to take from that pool. They can say, I'd go find some more.
It was 108,000.
Or the principal could have somebody in their hip pocket and say, I want this guy,
Okay.
and they would take them as their employee.
So going back to the pay, the 80 and 120, or 103, what it is if we sign a contract with them, what we're saying is, we're paying them $80 a day now, you've got to pay them $80 a day, but then they don't turn around and charge us 33% on top of 80, which is,
$103.
so the $80 goes to $103, so we're giving them $103.
Right.
Unless we give them at least 20
We
TAs.
still gotta give them 103.
No, that 33% goes, oh, no, you're saying we'll be saving the 33% because we're saving 8,000.
We still pay
Those.
that, we still pay
The,
that
the
103.
savings on the 20 TAs would make the, upcharge on the.
The
wash.
33% if we gave them a 20.
Cause they still gotta pay bonuses and all that, you know, all that other stuff.
Well, there's still money. I mean, there's money, everybody's making money, so on, so on, so on. It's just the point of, are we going to keep going down the road of coming, right, or we keep, you know, we don't keep going down the
Getting
road
incentive cards and stuff.
of it taking more time, because you've got to look at it from that aspect, is that yuns are wasting time trying to find subs, so there's other money that you're
Okay.
having to
We're paying
do.
company 103. Now, out of that, they're gonna get insurance.
I think we need to digest this,
Yeah.
bring back some more information, we'll argue some more.
But then they're also gonna get.
What they're,
bonuses.
on the TAs, I've got the Jackson County one right here. I didn't think about that,
Get these
Dr. Rogers.
benefits.
Um,
Oh, well,
How many do they provide Jackson County?
we pay this company.
Jackson County started with 20,
103.
How long have they been
Okay.
a little over a year.
We're paying our subs 80.
So how are they?
Right.
Substitute.
Now, if it was the.
They're giving them TAs as well.
No,
Do they have any problem filling positions over there now? Or do you know?
They've said it's greatly improved, so.
that's, I got.
I wanted to ask on the TAs, because it seems to be an issue, but
Uncertified.
what I heard was
Or $80.
principal still picks them.
.33.
Yes.
Here, let's do it again.
Teacher still gives her 5 choices.
Point.
Right, so
Same software.
we're really not taking anything away if the
Yeah,
principal
with this company,
still picks
you
the
would pay
person.
them.
No, you're not taking it
You're
away,
paying
the only thing,
109.
what it boils down to
We're
is,
still paying the sub,
you know, are we really
then out of this extra 33%.
The
What they're,
and I think I agree with, Logan over here is, I mean, the pay, but
The monthly.
are we gonna take a chance of raising the pay and still, a year from now, still have the same situation, or 2 years?
No, and that goes back to what Nolte said, I mean.
Yeah.
It is a gamble.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, I totally agree with what he said. We can't do this if we decide to raise the pay and then, oh, we messed up and go back and do that. We can't, I totally agree. We cannot do that.
Before COVID, did we have a problem filling filling the substitutes?
yes.
It's always been a problem.
It,
That's bad.
the first year of absence management did improve greatly. It went up over 90%, but, the next year it went back down into the 70s. And the years before that, again, it's having enough that on any given day when you gotta have 80 or 60, that you've got a big enough pool that can happen. And keeping that pool is the issue. That's what this company, that's the service they're providing, is keeping the pool of the subs there. That rotation is incredible. And,
Name one company that's not having this problem.
well, there isn't one, but we're just trying to solve our problem, you know?
But listen to me, if every other company's having this problem,
Yeah.
why is the ESS not having the same problem?
I don't know.
I don't buy that they're not.
They've got some kind of magic, I guess. But,
Magic potion.
well, you know, we don't
I'm
have
not
to,
saying it's a bad idea, don't get me wrong.
I'm just saying we gotta try
Lots of
something.
money being on the table somewhere.
Are there enough money there that the ESS would be making to hire an internal person to manage this system and to go out and do the recruiting and try to build up a pool?
That's their issue. I don't.
Yeah, he's saying.
No, I'm talking about for us to do
Somebody
it,
to address this.
for us to have a person that does that.
I think
I'd be happy to have that.
we're just brainstorming and trying to solve a
I mean,
problem. But I think, Mr. Burnett, the answer is, we'd probably have to hire a full-time person and let them maybe do subs and buses, because we've had a hard time finding a part-time bus recruiter.
Yeah, we've been
We,
looking a
you
while.
know, we might, you might could do it,
Honestly, that might be an option, to hire one person to manage by all of that and see if we could fix it. I don't know what the answer is, but,
I don't either.
So,
and I think it needs to be, and I do think I would be interested to hear what kind of overall, whether it be a survey or whatever, what the principals had to say about it.
Well, I think probably what we do is share the information with them. We wanted you all to hear it first, because, you make decisions about spending money based upon our recommendations and employment, and you make decisions about big program changes that impact the budget. We want to know what the principals think, and I invited them to come tonight. But I think what we do is Jason can find some of the information you've asked for, and we can get the principals together sometime in the next week or two and share the information with them, and then look at it again.
I found the copy from Jackson County, and I'll be happy to give this one to you, Dr. Rod. What they've done here with Jackson County, and it would be the same for us, because TAs are on the same pay scale anywhere in the state. The payroll for a TA is right at 20,000. What they're eliminating is that we have to pay, and they would have to pay some of this, is the PTO, the health benefits, workers' comp, the taxes, and the retirement, which brings it to $34,600 for us. When you eliminate those things, they only bill us for the payroll, which is the 20,000, and then they add $6,237 to it. So somehow, and I don't know that they will tell us how, it may be proprietary to them, but somehow they're doing all this over here for $6,000,
It's costing us 14.
where it's costing us 14. So how they do
Assuming
it,
that the employee's not
This is Leanne.
paid in,
yeah, I don't know how
that they
much.
have options.
Right.
You can take the health insurance, but it's gonna cost you X.
Yeah,
You're not doing it out of goodness of our heart.
no, I don't think so either. And again, giving them TAs is not a requirement. They just offered that.
well, the big question that I would have is, if this board decide after whatever we've talked about is, so you're saying 33%, if we went with this, it was gonna be a grand total of 160,000 over what we're doing substitutes now. Take out the TA, substitutes, it'd be 160,000 more. Where are you gonna get $160,000? Where would it come out of?
It'll come out of whatever the budget is, and
So we would have to budget another 160,000 in line item substitute.
We'll have to budget that somewhere. We still spent some fund balance last year, about 400,000. So again, we're trying to solve a problem. We don't have more money. I've explained that to the principals and shared it with you all. In local current expense, we have, fewer students. Because it's a problem related to COVID, you might get to spend some of the ESSER money on it for a short time, but that money will go away too. And we haven't explored that part yet, because we wanted to get feedback and an impression from you.
I think it's smart not to explore that.
Yeah.
Because eventually you're gonna hit that.
Yeah, eventually that ESSER money will be gone.
And that's a recurring expense. Big difference.
And I want to make it clear that, I just want to make it clear that I'm more than happy to continue managing this. I'm not trying to shirk anything. What I'm trying to say is we are out of resources to try to make it better.
Yeah.
So we're either gonna have to go with somebody else who seems to think they can make it better, or we're gonna have to up the resources to try to make it better ourselves. And
That's right.
Got two options.
That's either way.
Definitely gonna cost more because we're seeing that across the board in all industries. And when, like you said, when Chick-fil-A and Sonic or whoever ups the starting wages and stuff, we're all fishing out of the same pool when you reach that,
Yeah.
that person out there that's gonna be in those, lower paying jobs or entry-level jobs.
Sure. So, you know, again, either way y'all decide to go is perfectly fine with me. I'll be
Let's
happy.
get the information and then we'll discuss it again.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Dr. Putnam has, updates, and sorry, this is taking a while, but that's why we have work sessions, and it's a good conversation about a number of things.
I only have about 3.5 hours worth, so you're good.
See you in the morning.
I just drove 4 hours.
I'll go through this real quick. Quick update on central office. Currently, I think a maximum delay or date would be March 1st. That's what we're looking at. All the sheetrock, electrical, plumbing, first coat of painting, IT cabling, all that's complete. Bergen Construction is not exempt from supply chain issues, nor are his subcontractors. So supply chain issues are an issue. And so it looks highly unfinished, but it's going to come together pretty quickly because if you saw the tracks or rails for the fiberboard that's going on, they've begun that work, and it's going on. It looks really, really nice. What makes it look highly unfinished is no front doors, and that was a supply chain issue where they didn't have what they needed to make the glass doors. So, and then next steps will be connecting utilities for temperature or moisture conditioning so that they can begin putting in ceiling tile and flooring, and also they're set to pave or do asphalt after Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving. So
I will tell you this on that, we ran into that a lot. Pretty much if you don't get it by the first week in December, all the paving companies will shut down for 3 months. So they've got a tight window there.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did want to bring your attention to, I named it on this project, but you just need to know, and I'm going to say it, but I feel like many of you know it because you're all working professionals. Capital projects, just looking at some of those, we'll have a deeper discussion in building and grounds. But, you know, looking at some of our roofing projects, we're looking at having available materials and even available contractors August 2022. And we've been, you know, proactive. We've put out an RFP 3 months earlier than we normally would, and we're being delayed by 6 months more than that. So it's tough. So I just wanted to point that out. We're also looking at those same challenges with ESSER funds designated for HVAC replacement. So most I can tell you about that in the way of capital projects is we're being proactive. Again, we'll take a deeper dive into those in building and grounds, but we're putting out RFQs and RFPs earlier, trying to procure architects, engineers in advance so that there's no delay on that, and do everything we can to expedite the process. But at the end of the day, we cannot resolve supply chain issues. All right, flood update. Oh, sorry, go ahead. That project should be complete end of this month, early next month. We actually got those materials in advance of the most recent supply chain issues. The curbing, the only delay we had there was the curbing to receive or set the unit on was not correct. It's the wrong measurement. So outside of that, it would have been finished more quickly. But you have to set the HVAC prior to laying the flooring, and the flooring then needs to acclimate for several days and get the moisture and temperature under control at a stable condition prior to putting down the flooring. So that was the delay on that, but all the materials came in on time for that. It's painted, floors are set to be installed, the HVAC's in place, so it's ready. Plumbing's complete, electrical's complete. All right, any other questions on capital projects at large? Okay. Wanted to bring you up to date on our flood and the damage we sustained there. We had our first site visit at Central Haywood this week, November 3rd. They had a representative from FEMA come out to conduct the very first site visit. Before I forget to give you all the dates, 3rd and 4th of this week were Central Haywood, 8th and 9th are the ball fields. So those are the dates, November 3rd and 4th and 8th and 9th. So a FEMA assessor showed up November 3rd. We were all in here in a principals meeting, and I was called out to go meet with that representative. We also have a lady from the North Carolina Department of Public Safety who has been a huge advocate for Haywood County schools and flood damage. And both the NCDPS lady and the lady from FEMA who does the assessment or conducts a site visit said that their opinion and their recommendation is to relocate from this building. And so if we wish to do that, we needed to discontinue the site visit on Central Haywood prior to completion. So we executed that site visit, and we have reached out to our PDMG. Please don't ask me what those initials stand for, but that is our project manager with FEMA. You have to submit damage in a project or an all-encompassing repair that is needed. And so Josh probably, if he's listening, he's thinking, does he have a rat in his pocket? But Josh has submitted the paperwork to our project manager or FEMA project manager and let them know that we do wish to relocate rather than repair. Okay? So what happens next, and it's, bear with me, it's kind of a convoluted process. I hope I can explain this clearly. So basically what we have to do is establish a pre-disaster value through bids. What was this building worth? What was its value? What would it cost to build prior to the flood damage? Okay? So that's a big number. All right? Then you have to determine the cost of repair for pre-disaster value just as it is, and I'm going to use arbitrary numbers, so don't say it's not 14,000 square feet. Let's say 14,000 square feet over there, two-story building made of concrete, exactly the same. We have to get a bid like for like just as it is. What would that building cost? Then we have to do what's called a mitigation bid. What would that building cost to mitigate? What would we have to do to make that building not like for like, but flood proof? No joints between floor and wall, better doors with better jambs and seals so that water and pressure rated for water flow at however many gallons per minute. What would that bid look like? Once we've completed that bid process, so we're kind of up to 3 steps here. Once all 3 of those bids have been procured, we give that to our project manager, our PDMG, and he does a BCA or benefits cost analysis. And they conduct that, and they go through and they look at those options. What is a like for like based on these bids? What does a like for like repair, what does it look like? What does a like for a mitigated or improved building look like? And then they take those and they also consider how many times the building has it been impacted, and they look at the total amount spent in comparison to what it's going to cost to do any one of those options. And they say, you know, over time, based on the number of times this is flooded, this new build or this new location is going to be more expensive. However, 2.4 million spent the first flood, 5.5 million spent, and those are arbitrary numbers. They're pretty close, but just throwing out some numbers. Oh, that's 8 million. Well, if we continue to spend large amounts because this building has shown it can and will be flooded over time, the cost of a new building or a relocate has benefits for doing so. And so that's what we'll be working on. And if we can successfully complete that BCA or benefit cost analysis, relocation is a possibility. But that is all we've done is express our wishes, what we intend or hope to do. But we do have the backing of the on-site FEMA site visitor as well as the lady from Department of Public Safety.
Question real quick. Since we had to destroy the gym over there, and I know that really didn't get flooded, but if we have to relocate a school, would building a gym be part of that relocation? Or is that feasible, or?
I'm glad you brought that up. We're very fortunate. This sounds very similar to previous plans. So many of those numbers and measurements and things are already in place. So we will be able to capture some of those initial plans that, this board was very wisely anticipating the need to vacate this site. So many of those specs and plans are already there.
Okay.
And to answer your question, yes.
Okay, good.
We're just gonna call it the Greek room. Go back later and add some flooring and stuff.
Right. All right.
All right.
Any questions on that portion? And then I'm going to move to the ball fields, and then I'll be done.
All right.
Okay,
Carry on.
very good. The next is the ball fields, and I just want to make sure folks are clear on that because, again, it seems easy enough to get in there with, hey, I've got volunteer help, and they've got equipment, and they're skilled, and let's make this happen. Okay? Well, here is the sequence of the way things have to happen if we wish to be reimbursed. So I'm going to say right up front, FEMA will tell you their job's to secure, which is make you whole again. Our job will be to insure. Okay? So to be insured, you have to get it permitted, right? And to get a permit, you have to have a design. And so those two steps have to occur. Okay, we do have to get a design, and then that will determine whether we're able to get that parcel permitted based on these designs. So those two have to be in place. Otherwise, the money we hope to gain from FEMA is forgone because we won't be able to insure it. Both those have to happen. We have to have the design to get the permit, and we have to have the permit to get the insurance. And so to be made whole, we have to follow all those steps. And so if we fly in with a motor grader, excavator, whatever, we're going to forgo a lot of money. And let's say even if we did that in just sheer materials costs, we're going to tap our current capital fund balance as well as any other line items we may have. So not good practice. So, and if you'll remember, those site visits are coming up November 8th and 9th, so we'll have more information on that as well.
Will those come under the same thing if you want to relocate them? Do you have to do the same procedure?
Yes, sir. It'd be the same, same procedure. What is this land value or this area for this field valued at? What are these bleachers and stands? I'll just tell you though, I'm gonna arm wrestle them over having to, they'll have to tell us or advise us on Memorial Field. That's not something.
No, I understand that, but
Right.
on the leased property, for instance, or whatever.
Right. Yep, they will, and kudos to our FEMA folks and the DPS folks. They've been very helpful and resourceful and very transparent with us, and we appreciate that.
Is there a possibility that they would say we need to relocate the football field? I mean, is that something they may bring up?
Well, again, they make lots of recommendations. It certainly is a possibility, and this board and Building and Grounds may be faced with that. Look, if you want us to make you whole, you're going to have to relocate. Have they given any indication of that thus far? No. I'm just saying it's already occurred, and we've.
Where would we go?
Right.
That will not be a recommendation from your superintendent.
Nor me.
Nor us. Yes, sir.
Okay, just for the record. I know it's being recorded.
I think my statement in closed session or in Building and Grounds had been, I would rather move my house brick by brick to California on foot, so.
That's a true statement.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, I don't think that'd be very popular. All right.
Any other questions about flood? I do appreciate your patience. I know that many of you hear from the community, and it's hard and frustrating to wait around and see these desecrated fields with no activity going on. We really are trying to do best for our school system, maximize the funding sources that we have available to us, and ensure the proper permitting and design on all of it.
There's a method to the madness.
Yes, sir.
There is. And there's an end result that we're looking for too.
That's right.
That's good. All right. You have a few things we need to talk about in closed session, I understand.
Yes, sir, 4 or 5 things. I hope it will not take very long, but they're just things, I like to tell you probably more than other superintendents would probably say.
Okay.
I think it's good if you know.
Okay, we're going to announce that we'll take no action tonight. We can shut down the videotaping. We're not going to come back and take any action. So I need a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Kirkpatrick's made a motion, seconded by Dr. Rogers to go into closed session. Any questions or discussion on the motion? There being none, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will be in closed session.